Hello, welcome back to my channel if you're returning, or welcome if you're new. My name is Julie, and on this channel, I am just documenting my journey into and through Christianity through the first year of being a Christian and beyond. I am now a year and 2 months in, and I'm just sharing kind of what I'm learning and experiencing along the way in hopes that it is helpful or useful or interesting for you. So that's what's going on here. And today I am going to be sharing with you what it was like to attend a Byzantine Eastern Catholic Divine Liturgy. So that is essentially the Eastern version of the Mass if you're a Roman Catholic. It is the Sunday service if you are a Protestant or something else. And I decided to kind of ease my way into experiencing the East through checking out the Byzantine Catholic liturgy. So, yeah, keep in mind, not an expert, not a scholar, not a priest, not even a Catholic. I am just searching and seeking, and this is what I found. So yeah, enjoy. All right. I am drinking a very large mug of coffee today. That's how you know kind of where I'm at is I usually drink a cup like this big. I think when most people think about Catholicism, they automatically picture Roman Catholicism. And there's actually this whole other Eastern rite, this whole other side to Catholicism that looks almost more like Eastern Orthodoxy in a lot of different ways. And I'm sure there's more differences between Eastern Orthodoxy and Eastern Catholicism than I currently know, but the biggest difference is that the Eastern Catholic rite, the Byzantine rite, there's another rite that's more Middle Eastern, starts with an M. They are in communion with Rome. So they will mention the Pope during the liturgy in place of where I think an Eastern Orthodox parish would probably mention their bishop. Again, I'm just getting into this Eastern stuff. So I ended up going twice. I went to two divine liturgies, 2 weeks in a row. And first thing I noticed when we got to the parish was that the priest was outside welcoming each person in as they entered, and I got to talk to him for a quick second, and he asked me, "Are you Catholic?" And I was like, "No, just Christian, just exploring." And he was like, "Okay, cool." I felt instantly comfortable even just talking with him for a brief second. And I went in, and a good amount of parishioners, all the pews were full, but it was a very small church, so it felt very intimate. And of course, the first thing I noticed was what do you call that? The iconostasis, the kind of screen of icons that is separating the congregation from the altar. I thought that was really beautiful. They had all the different saints, these icons of the apostles. And then you look up to the ceiling and you have Christ in the center, surrounded by all these different stars painted on the ceiling and the walls. And it was just, I thought that was really beautiful. And the service starts, and I liked that the priest was facing towards God, towards the altar, and intermittently kind of. This is a part of the liturgy, so it's not like he was like freestyling or anything. This is, to my understanding, the divine liturgy that you'll experience at an Eastern Catholic church or an Eastern Orthodox church. I think they're extremely similar. I think they're both let's see if I can get this right, the liturgy of Saint John Chrysostom. So this is like early Christianity, the first few hundred years. This is that liturgy, this is that service. So I felt that immediately because the congregation was singing a cappella for the majority of the service. So there was no instruments, there was no organ or anything like that. It was just the voices of the congregation and the clergy and the priest. And it was kind of like they are affirming and singing their theology. And there's some Lord have mercies in there. There's a lot of crossing yourself, I believe, every time the Trinity is mentioned. and there is some standing and sitting. There's no kneeling. At least there wasn't any kneeling at the one that I went to, but I'm assuming there's no kneeling because the thing that I find attractive about this is that it has not been altered or updated. So I really feel that Christian tradition is completely relevant to our faith. It's not this separate thing. It's not even an optional thing, really. I think you really lose a lot by cutting yourself off from just the traditions that we have been given that are just so beautiful and that tie you to all the members of the church that came before you. I can't imagine purposely cutting myself off from that beauty. What I am looking for is the original church. So that's definitely a big draw for me in terms of just the East, is the fact that, as far as I can tell, and I'm sure they have problems of their own, but when it comes to the liturgy, when it comes to what brings the members of the body together every single week, every Sunday, that has not been changed. That has not been altered in a way to make modern people feel more comfortable. There's something about that it really puts me off and it feels wrong to me even. So that's why I'm seeking this with so much fervor, is because it feels like it matches. It feels honest and real, and it has depth, and it touches your soul in a way that, yes, you might hear a great sermon or, I don't know, attend a church where the people are lovely, but these elements of the liturgy that have been kept and held and revered for thousands of years at this point, you feel there's something otherworldly happening. And there are a lot of elements of the liturgy that are relaying that to you almost on a kind of subconscious level. So I don't think I'd be able to really explain it to you. It's just something that I could definitely sense. So the first liturgy that we went to, it starts and there's incense and there's singing. And if you watch my video about the Novus Ordo, you'd know that I was very not into, and I'm not really into, to be honest, and I know there's variation of the Novus Ordo Mass, but the ones that I've experienced, which were fairly reverent and beautiful in their own way, the style of singing in those masses really I didn't like it, because I felt that the tone didn't match, and it just felt very upbeat and light and fluffy in comparison to me like staring at Christ up on the cross, and these people are receiving his body and blood. I'm not able to receive the Eucharist yet, but there's a seriousness to the Mass that it feels very discordant. Is that the right word? When I have gone to Novus Ordo Masses, specifically all the singing and responding, it makes me feel so weird. It just does. I don't know. So anyway, here I am at the Divine Liturgy, the Eastern Catholic Church, where it is entirely singing, actually. The congregation doesn't even respond in any other way than singing. And the songs are like pretty long and they're pretty in depth. And like I said, they're kind of like saying their theology, and they're like stating the facts of the faith almost in song. But there was something about it that it almost made me imagine I was just like in the early church, in someone's house, like gathered together. And that's how people worshiped, was just, yeah, through song, but in a way that just felt almost, I don't want to say tribal. Tribal is not really quite the right word for it, but just like very communal. And the tone was, it matched, right? It wasn't like super light and fluffy stuff. Some of the kind of lyrics that they were saying, Lord have mercy, and it just has a different tone to it. I don't know the songs, so I can't remember exactly what they were singing, but I do remember kind of the melody, and I've been hearing it in my head the last few days. And I think that's an element of music in church that is good, is that it kind of puts, how music gets stuck in your head? Well, it's good if you can put this kind of music in your head and let it get stuck there, right? So I actually thought the singing in this service was beautiful, and I didn't have this same kind of like recoil feeling to it. So I don't know, take that as you will. I wasn't really sure how to feel. I just thought it was kind of interesting, and kind of foreign, a little weird, but interesting and cool at the same time, until we get to the Eucharist. So once again, if you've been following along on this journey, you know that for some reason, I have been given, I guess you would consider it a grace of some kind. I don't really know, because for me it's really uncomfortable and painful, but it's unusual. I've gathered that from you guys. So yes, when I attend the traditional Latin Mass, for example, I get a visceral, uncomfortable reaction when the Eucharist comes about. I feel extremely thirsty all of a sudden. My stomach grumbles even if I just ate 2 hours before. I've done this experiment multiple times now to see if it still does it. It does. My heart starts beating really fast. I start getting dizzy and kind of nauseous. I have this instinct that I just want to like crumple to the floor and like scream, but I don't, obviously. This time also, the last time I went this past Sunday, I got this like sharp stabbing pain in my temple. This all only starts right when they're at the part of the Eucharist. So I really have to like compose myself, keep it together. Once again, at this first liturgy, it was just like my first time at the traditional Latin Mass, where it was just uncontrollable tears. I was so moved by what was going on. Did I understand it? No. Could I see what they were doing? No. Could I receive the Eucharist? No. So it's a very like, I don't know. Like, I don't know why it happens to me. I don't know, because I tend to go with a friend and I always ask them, did you experience that? And they usually say no. My theory, which, I mean, God knows, God literally knows why that's happening to me and I don't. My theory is that I'm not baptized yet. And so if baptism truly saves, if baptism is truly the thing that makes you a part of the body of Christ, I am somebody who loves Christ. I'm somebody who is following the Christian path, and I'm looking for the true church, and I am awaiting the day to be baptized and confirmed or chrismated with a lot of excitement, right? However, if that is true, it would make sense that, I don't know if it would make sense, but it's a theory as to why I get such an uncomfortable feeling, because a part of a Catholic baptism, or even probably an Orthodox baptism, I would assume, there's a little bit of an exorcism involved, excuse me. And I do kind of feel like maybe it's possible that there are still things within me that need to be cleansed out at the time of my baptism that I'm just simply not able to remove up until this point. So I almost feel, when I'm in the presence of the Eucharist, like screaming, like letting out a scream and like running out of the room. And that feels like a very abnormal response. I've never had that before in my life. So yes, just like at the traditional Latin Mass, I experience that at the Divine Liturgy of the Eastern Catholic Church as well. So at this point, I think it's really about the Eucharist. I don't know so much if it's specifically about the Catholic Church. I'm not sure. I will continue this experiment and explore Eastern Orthodox churches and see if this happens to me there too. I don't know. This is a very weird way of discerning, but I think God has given it to me as a grace, because it's not something that I can ignore or forget. It's very weird, it's very unusual, it's very jarring, it's very uncomfortable. And, we're told to put on the armor of God every day, because the devil will try it, basically. And being that I'm not officially a part of the body, but I am actively seeking and just really doing everything I can to be a vessel and an instrument for God, which is what these videos are essentially, just me being obedient to that. I have experienced significant spiritual warfare, and I will continue to experience spiritual warfare. So that's kind of how I see that. It's very uncomfortable for me to actively put myself in that position, because I know at this point that I will experience that. But it just, I don't know, I feel like I have to, at the very least, just for the sake of these videos. That helped me go the second time. After experiencing that the first time, I wasn't too excited to go back, just because it's just so uncomfortable for me. But I need to. I need to. I love being in the house of the Lord, so So yeah, that was extremely interesting. The priest was extremely kind. We just happened to be there on a day where he was announcing that he was leaving the parish after 3 years of serving them there, and the parishioners were really emotional, and you could tell that he had a gift for preaching. Like his homily really hit both times, and I don't know, it's just it was a good experience. So yes, it was different than the Latin Rite. If you've never been to a Byzantine Catholic church or divine liturgy, it is different than the Latin Mass, the Roman Catholic Mass. It is different. The whole structure really is different. The only thing that's similar is maybe the priest's vestments. He was wearing white and gold. I was kind of assuming he was going to be wearing black, but he was wearing white and gold. I don't know if that's just the time of the year or something related to that. And of course, the Eucharist, and of course, Christ, and of course, Mary. And so there's the same threads obviously are there. It's still the Catholic Church, but it feels and looks more Orthodox than Catholic to me. So I just thought that was really interesting. Not to mention, also, by the way, the priest had 11 kids. So he was married with 11 kids. Some of his kids were there even. And that was like really sweet because you could tell that the parishioners are very familiar with him and his family. And it was just very sweet. So afterwards, they have coffee hour and I think even food in this other little building, and we were invited to go, and I would have loved to, but I really had to gather myself after that first time. I was like, I have to gather myself. And I'm also doing this Whole30 challenge where I can't eat, or it's not that I can't eat, but I'm choosing not to eat grains, dairy, or sugar. So I don't want to be that person to be like, I can't have that. I'm like, I'd rather not do that right now. So yeah, the first experience was really beautiful, and I decided to go back again this past weekend, like 2 days ago, and he preached on the prodigal son, which was just really touching and moving. And I noticed that they incorporate more of Orthodox language, like the Passions, and the cross in there is the Eastern Orthodox cross with the extra footrest, I believe it is. And yeah, just the icons are really beautiful. Actually, after the first liturgy, I came home and I was like, I need an icon in here. I literally ordered one that very night. I had been looking for some kind of depiction or image or representation of Christ for this one specific area in my living room here. I kind of have like the whole room is really a prayer corner. Like this whole house is really a prayer corner for me. But I was looking for I was looking for the right one for months. And after I went to the Divine Liturgy, I was like, it needs to be an icon. So I found an icon that night. I ordered it. It came quickly. It's here now. I'll show it to you in a few minutes. But just, yeah, there's something really special about the icons. I will say that the Orthodox believe that the icon is meant to be a window into the other world. So it's not meant to be even just sacred art, even though that's great too. It's not meant to be a realistic depiction of people, obviously. It's not even meant to be kind of a stylistic art choice. It is meant to be a window into the other world. And you can really feel that when you approach the icons. There is something really special about the icons. So yeah, I got one for myself immediately. I love it so much. I find myself just stopping to gaze at it all the time. And it's really added to my prayer life. So I just think that's really beautiful. And yeah, I went back this past week and there were a lot of kind of almost ominous elements in this one for me. And it almost felt like kind of foreshadowing. I almost had this feeling because really, I've listened to some priests talk about what should people do when they're visiting a Byzantine liturgy or even an Eastern Orthodox liturgy. What should you do if you're a visitor? I think the best thing to do really is to pray and to meditate and just be there and just take it in and not necessarily try to follow along, and because you're not gonna know what's happening. So it's better to just really be present there and try to let God speak to you while you're there. And so I've had some specific things that I've just been wanting some clarity on and kind of going back and forth about. I feel like I've gotten to this point where I'm at a fork in the road of East versus West. And there's another element to that has kind of upped the ante as well, of this East versus West fork in the road that I've kind of found myself coming up to. So I felt honestly that I'm going in the right direction, even though it feels very unusual to me. It feels very uncertain to me. It feels like not something I'm able to really understand by myself without really kind of living it and just following the prompts that God is giving me. So it's very kind of mysterious. It's really kind of asking me to let go and be open and discerning at the same time and just really letting God lead. So I felt that He spoke to me in this second liturgy that I went to. I felt like I got a little bit of clarity and I was really happy about that. And got to talk to the priest very briefly afterwards. Everyone was kind of standing in the little area where people are standing. Nobody was like walking out, which I thought was really interesting too. That's something that I noticed was a little bit different than the Roman Catholic Church. At least I don't know, maybe I don't know why this is, but I just feel like there's a little bit more emphasis on fostering that community of the church after service. In the Eastern churches, there's literally coffee hour and food and a meal, and people stay and talk. And I mean, I think that's really cool. I'm kind of an introvert and I kind of have an aversion to people knowing me. So that's something that I would have to work on no matter what. um, but I think that's really cool and I think it's really beautiful. And yeah, and in the Roman Catholic Church, I think I mean, maybe there are parishes like that, but what I've experienced is usually, yeah, people come to mass and then they head out and there's not that element of coffee hour usually. Maybe like a few times a month or something. I'm not sure, but something else that I noticed too, which I feel like might be kind of interesting to add if you're somebody who's just on this journey like I am and you're interested to know about the different kind of details and cultures of these different churches and denominations is I've noticed that a lot of people who are attending these Eastern Catholic churches or even not divine, Eastern Orthodox churches as Americans, as like converts, I feel like they're kind of like oddballs, and I mean that in the best possible way. Like a few of the people there at the first liturgy, they had this kind of like cool grunge style. There was like a guy who was wearing this almost kind of like rock and roll outfit, but he had this big Orthodox cross on and white hair. And, the women are wearing, if women were veiling, they were wearing just kind of like simple headscarves. I think that's something a little different than the Roman Catholic Church, where if women do veil, they do tend to wear more of like the mantilla, like the Spanish lace style veil. I think in the Eastern churches it's more of just a simple headscarf. But yeah, the people there were dressed nice, but they kind of had this like interesting style going on. A lot of them were a little alternative, a little more artsy, a little more, I don't know, there was just kind of like a little bit of a vibe going on with some of these people. I was like, that's kind of cool. I've just noticed too online, the people that I've been learning from or listening to, they tend to be musicians and artists. And I don't know, I think there's something really interesting about Westerners who convert to Eastern Christianity. I feel like it relays that that person is probably a bit of a free thinker, a bit of someone who's willing to kind of go outside the box if they feel that that church is truly the true church, if they've done their research. I kind of see Eastern Orthodoxy and Eastern Christianity to be like the final boss of my journey thus far. I really feel like I have reached kind of, I mean, there's nowhere else to go after this. It's either between Catholicism and Orthodoxy. So, anyway, I think my conclusion so far in terms of the Byzantine Catholic Church, Eastern Catholicism, I think it's really beautiful. I think if I was somebody who was already a Catholic, if I was baptized Catholic, for example, and already a part of the church and wasn't in this period of discerning where I will go, I think it would be a real option. I think it's beautiful. I love that the liturgy is just ancient and unchanged and has so much depth to it. And yeah, there was nothing about it that I didn't like, really. It's more so for me, I don't know if it's just because of my personality or if this is the way God is leading me. I honestly have no idea. But for me, I feel like I will either end up being Roman Catholic or Eastern Orthodox. I can't really be in the middle, if that makes sense. That's a part of the reason why I didn't become Anglican, for example. When I was discerning between Protestantism and Catholicism. Anglicanism would have been the perfect, you know, the via media, the middle way. But I don't feel called to the middle way. I really just want to be all in, and I want to have faith that the church that I end up belonging to is the church with the fullness of the faith, is the church of the apostles. So that's what I'm looking for. So yes, I thought the Byzantine Catholic Church was beautiful. I thought the Divine Liturgy was beautiful. My intention for going there was first to just kind of check it out and get the experience, and also to ease my way into building up the confidence to attend an Eastern Orthodox Divine Liturgy. So that was my thinking, and then that's what I did. So yeah, I don't think I will be Eastern Catholic, but I think it's such a beautiful expression of Christianity. I think it's well worth checking out a Byzantine Catholic church if you have one near you. And yeah, no notes really. So so that's my experience. I hope it was helpful for you if you're somebody who's maybe in the process of discerning this as well, or you're also kind of exploring these things and touring churches and doing investigative journalism, like I told a kind woman who asked me about my life there at the parish. So yeah, those are my thoughts on that. As always, thank you for listening and watching. I hope this was kind of informative, kind of helpful. I think I probably left out a lot of things that if you are an Eastern Catholic and you can fill in the gaps of understanding, please do in the comments down below. I always love hearing from you guys, and just your perspective and your experiences and your stories in this regard in general are just really fascinating. And yeah, I guess the journey continues. So we shall see. We shall see. Oh, just want to give you a little cuteness before I go. Okay.